You might find yourself starting here by allowing yourself to slow down your next breath out, or by closing your eyes, maybe doing both of those things, or perhaps simply noticing that there's nothing you need to force, nothing you need to perform correctly, nothing you need to achieve, no expectation to empty your mind, no expectation or even need to hear every word. Because some people discover that the unconscious mind has a remarkable way of hearing exactly what it needs, while the conscious mind is free to wander wherever it wishes. And as you acknowledge that, you may notice your exhales becoming just a little slower. Or perhaps your shoulders now are becoming just a little heavier. And whether your experience is one of slowing, or softening, or something entirely different, you might simply become curious about what another 5% of that experience would feel like. You've become very well practiced at enduring, at remaining alert, at carrying discomfort for long periods of time. And after enough repetition, the nervous system can begin responding as though each sensation deserves immediate attention, as though each signal is asking for effort, for vigilance, for protection, perhaps in the service of not losing control, not breaking, not disappointing. And it can be useful to appreciate that those responses developed for reasons that once seemed important, because the unconscious mind is always trying, in its own way, to help. And because you've already become exceptionally skilled at resisting discomfort, this experience isn't about learning to fight pain more effectively. There may be very little left to learn in that direction. And it isn't about pretending anything is absent that is present, but perhaps about allowing your mind to discover that a sensation does not always need to become an instruction. That discomfort does not always need to become a command to work harder. Because sometimes what was once useful quietly outlives its usefulness. So perhaps this becomes an opportunity for your unconscious mind to grow curious about the way sensations naturally move, shift, change, reorganize when they are met in a different way. And there is no need to know what that different way is just yet, because discoveries often arrive before explanations. And every experience you've had, including all the years your mind has spent learning these familiar patterns, becomes part of the very process through which something new can begin to develop. And as your conscious mind listens or drifts or evaluates or simply notices whatever it notices, another part of you may already be communicating in quieter ways. Because beneath the thoughts that move across awareness, there has always been a deeper rhythm, a quieter intelligence, a part of you that has learned countless things without needing conscious instruction, regulating your breathing, coordinating your movements, remembering what matters, adapting continuously in ways that rarely require your attention. And perhaps you'll find it interesting that this quieter part has often been waiting patiently for an opportunity to learn something new. And so you might notice the surface beneath your back supporting you, or the floor beneath your feet. And perhaps without needing to do anything at all, you become aware that your body already knows how to receive support, even now, without effort. And perhaps one hand feels warmer than the other. Perhaps one shoulder carries more attention. Perhaps there are places of ease that have quietly existed all along. Places that usually escape attention because awareness has become so naturally drawn toward discomfort, and perhaps today there is room for both. And it can be interesting to discover that attention itself begins changing experience, sometimes even before the conscious mind fully realizes it is happening, because the way attention rests upon something has always influenced the way it is experienced. Not because pain is somehow all in your head, and not because anything needs to be denied or imagined away, but because the brain and the body are continually interpreting, filtering, predicting, responding, making their best estimate of what each sensation means. And sometimes an old protective system simply continues responding as though every signal deserves immediate attention, as though every sensation requires an alarm. Because once upon a time, that readiness made very good sense. And perhaps another part of you is already beginning to recognize now that something new can also be learned. And so today there is no need to suppress anything, no need to avoid anything, no need even to surrender anything. Because perhaps it is simply enough to allow the nervous system to begin discovering a different relationship in its own way and in its own time. And as you continue breathing naturally now, you may notice that awareness itself can begin spreading a little wider, almost as though the horizon were opening at dawn. And rather than narrowing around discomfort, you may simply allow your awareness to include many things at once. The sounds within the room, or the feeling of air against your skin, the gentle rhythm of your breathing, becoming aware of the invisible thread that connects inhale to exhale, noticing the support beneath your body, and somewhere within that much larger landscape, sensation, existing as only one part of a far richer experience, not the whole story, simply one element among many. And perhaps you begin with a sensation that feels manageable enough to observe, not the strongest, not the one demanding the most attention, simply one that seems willing to be noticed. And as you notice it now, there may be no need to decide immediately whether it is good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, because curiosity often discovers things that judgment overlooks. And so you might simply become interested in its qualities, wondering whether it seems steady or moving, sharp or dull, dense or spacious, warm or cool, pulsing or constant, allowing each observation to arise without needing to change anything at all. And as you continue observing, perhaps something begins revealing itself almost naturally, because even pain, when it is observed with patience, is rarely as fixed as it first appears. It flickers, shifts, expands, contracts, changes texture, changes location, changes intensity. And while the nervous system sometimes tells a story of permanence, your direct experience often tells a story of movement. And simply discovering that movement begins teaching the brain something it could not learn while assuming nothing ever changes. Learning to expect change itself creates change. You might now tap or simply imagine tapping two of your fingertips of your dominant hand together as a way of creating a physical reminder of this expansion of experience, knowing that even if you have drifted away from conscious experience of this recording, your mind can activate the regions of your brain connected to operating the fingers of your dominant hand, and still build this connection for your benefit after this recording. Whenever I say tap throughout the remainder of this experience, you might choose to repeat this action and continue building the strength of this cue. And perhaps as you continue noticing, you may also become aware of an old familiar tendency, almost automatic, to tighten a little, to brace, to prepare for what the nervous system has learned to expect. And perhaps now, as you continue noticing this sensation, this manageable sensation, you may also become aware of an old familiar tendency, almost automatic, to tighten a little, to brace, to prepare for what the nervous system has learned to expect, tap, anticipating worsening before it arrives. Because that habit once served an important purpose. The body learned survival remarkably well. And because it learned so well, it may simply have continued doing what it has always done, even in moments where a different response is now possible, tap, and without trying to force yourself to relax. Because forcing is simply another form of struggle, you might become curious about what happens if there is just the smallest possibility, perhaps only 2%, of allowing a little less resistance, a little less effort, not abandoning yourself, simply softening the battle ever so slightly, tap, and perhaps discovering that sensation and alarm are not actually the same experience. That sensation may exist without panic. Sensation may exist without catastrophic meaning. Sensation may even become something observed with genuine curiosity, tap. Some veterans describe pain as though it were an alarm that simply never quite switches off. A siren that continues sounding long after the original danger has passed. And over time, the brain becomes extraordinarily efficient at detecting possible threats. So efficient that ordinary sensations can begin receiving extraordinary attention. And yet it is the very same nervous system that learned amplification, that remains capable of learning discrimination, capable of discovering, this is unpleasant, and I remain here safely. This is intense, and intensity can change. This is uncomfortable, and not all of my experience. And each time those experiences are lived rather than merely understood, new associations begin forming quietly beneath conscious awareness, tap. Repetition strengthening pathways. Experience teaching what words alone never could, allowing the nervous system to rediscover flexibility one moment at a time, tap. And perhaps awareness drifts naturally toward the image of a quiet river or stream. Or perhaps the image simply arrives to you on its own. Leaves drifting along the surface. Each one arriving, remaining for a while, continuing downstream, much as sensations themselves appear, linger, and change, some gentle, some more intense, some seeming to stay longer than expected, others disappearing almost before they are fully noticed, while awareness itself remains something much larger than any single leaf, much larger than any individual sensation, tap, and there is no need to jump into the river, no need to stop its current, no need to analyze every leaf floating past, because observing, allowing, tracking can sometimes become enough. And perhaps one sensation begins shifting ever so slightly under that kind of attention. Perhaps intensity changes. Perhaps location changes. Perhaps the emotional charge softens first. Tap, because even discovering that sensation is dynamic rather than fixed begins gently reorganizing the predictions the brain has been making all along. Tap. And now, only if it feels comfortable enough, you might allow awareness to move a little closer toward an area that usually carries more discomfort. Remaining connected all the while with the room around you. Tap. With the support behind or beneath you. With the rhythm of your breathing. Allowing one part of awareness to observe sensation while another part remains grounded. Steady. Tap. Quietly noticing that you are here. And perhaps you notice the familiar impulse to pull away, to tighten, to tell the old story. And rather than struggling with that impulse, you may simply recognize it. Tap. Ah, there is a protective system doing what it learned to do. Neither wrong nor weak, simply protective. And then gently returning, once again, becoming interested in texture, movement, shape, the edges, the space surrounding the sensation. Tap. Perhaps even discovering that different parts of the sensation feel different from one another. Tap. One edge softer, another denser, the center pulsing, another area quieter. Noticing that the sensation itself changes as attention changes. Tap. And in doing so, teaching the nervous system that flexibility exists where certainty once lived. Tap. Because suffering often grows strongest when the brain predicts this will never change, while direct observation quietly continues demonstrating over and over that change is already happening. Tap. And somewhere deep within the nervous system, there may already exist memories of enduring without panic, moments of steadiness, moments of disciplined focus, moments when attention became calm, clear, tap, precise, perhaps during training, perhaps somewhere else entirely. And those same capacities which once helped you meet the outside world may now begin turning inward, not to battle your own body, but to listen differently. Tap, to become an observer, curious, patient, allowing understanding to replace constant combat. Tap. And now, as awareness continues widening, you may notice that sensations exist inside something much larger than themselves. Pain may be present, and breathing is also present. Pain may be present, and support is also present. Pain may be present, and choice is also present. And with each experience of holding both realities together, the nervous system quietly begins constructing a different template. Tap. One in which it learns, I can experience sensation without collapsing into it. I can remain present without becoming consumed. Or I can observe discomfort without losing myself inside it. Tap. And those learnings need not arrive all at once, because the unconscious often enjoys learning gradually, naturally, one experience at a time. And perhaps the unconscious mind continues learning long after this session has ended, discovering what degree of attention is most helpful, when softening becomes useful. Tap. How to distinguish genuine danger from simple activation. Tap. How awareness itself can widen instead of narrowing into alarm. Tap. And these changes may unfold gradually, subtly, naturally, through repetition, through practice, much as a path through a forest becomes easier to follow each time it is walked, until eventually the easier path simply becomes the familiar one. You might notice after each instance of listening to this recording that tapping 2 fingertips of your dominant hand together helps you forge this new path. Or maybe tapping 2 fingertips of your dominant hand together simply brings your awareness to the existence of this path in transition. And before returning fully, perhaps you become curious whether anything feels even slightly different. Perhaps the sensation itself has changed. Perhaps only your relationship with it has shifted. Or perhaps breathing feels easier. Maybe there is simply more space surrounding your experience, and whatever you notice, however small, is enough. Because this work has never required perfection, only continued learning. Gently retraining familiar patterns, allowing flexibility where rigidity once existed, tap. Creating new associations that become stronger each time they are experienced, until sensations become recognized as events rather than commands, tap. Experiences rather than identities, and the mind and body continue discovering in their own way new possibilities for responding, tap. And in a few moments you can begin allowing your awareness to return fully to the room, noticing once again the seat or support behind or beneath you, the feeling of air upon your skin, perhaps taking a deeper breath now, allowing small, comfortable movements in the hands, the shoulders, the neck, bringing back with you the understanding that awareness itself can become your steady companion, a calm without needing to force calm, curious without needing to solve everything, present without becoming overwhelmed, and carrying forward the quiet knowledge that learning continues long after this moment, in ways both conscious and unconscious, ready to continue in whatever way is right for you. During daily life, whenever you notice discomfort arising, you may occasionally pause and ask, what is the actual sensation right now before the story about it? Tap. And each time your mind observes even strong sensation with curiosity rather than immediate alarm, tap. You will strengthen your nervous system's capacity for flexibility in the direction that serves you today. Tap. You might now feel an urge to linger and let this meaningful unconscious work settle, or move and engage in the rest of your day. Or maybe you drift off to sleep or continue sleeping if you're now asleep. Whatever you do next, you'll do knowing your unconscious mind will be seeking future opportunities to try this new approach to interacting with uncomfortable sensations that once brought with them a history and a prediction that framed the sensation with sharp edges. Now feeling safe enough to allow sensation that does not serve you to move through awareness with less friction